Hi, I'm Peter and I give online one-to-one piano and music theory lessons. In this video I'm going to talk about musical intervals. An interval in music is the distance between two notes, and there are two aspects to the interval. One is its numerical value and the other is the quality of the interval. I take these two notes, C to F, and count the letter names from the lower note C up to F, C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, then we say that this interval is a fourth. If I change the F to F sharp, then it is still a fourth because there are still four letter names there, but clearly that sounds different, and that's because it has a different quality. In other words, it's a different type of fourth. At the top of the screen, I've listed 5 different types of interval, which are diminished, minor, major, perfect, and augmented. Now I'm going to look at the intervals that we have in a major scale between the first note of that scale and each of the other notes in that scale. So I'm going to take the scale of C major and start off with C to D, and we find that this is a major second. To E is a major third, to F a perfect fourth, G perfect fifth, A major sixth, B major seventh, and C an octave higher is a perfect octave. So you probably noticed that there were only 2 types of interval there, major and perfect. The second, third, sixth and seventh were all major. Fourth, fifth and octave were all perfect. Probably the easiest way to remember that is think that the intervals between the first note of a major scale and each of the other ones are all either major or perfect, and just remember that fourth, fifth and octave are perfect, and then remember all the others are major. Now let's look what happens when you raise or lower either the upper note or the lower note of an interval, but without changing the letter names. Let's take the interval C to F, which we said was a perfect fourth. Now let's raise the top note by a semitone, but without changing the letter names. In other words, the top note will still be F, but it becomes F sharp. Now by raising the top note a semitone, we've made those 2 notes a semitone further apart, and this has now become an augmented fourth. Let's go back to C and F, perfect fourth. Now this time I'm going to raise the lower note by a semitone, make it C sharp, so again it's still a fourth, still 4 letter names, but the 2 notes are now a semitone closer together, and it's become a diminished fourth. So a perfect interval, when you make it a semitone further apart but without changing the letter names, is augmented. When you make the 2 notes a semitone closer together but again without changing the letter names, is a diminished fourth. Let's look what happens to a major interval now. We're going to take C up to A, which is a major sixth. I'm going to raise the top note by a semitone, but I've got to change the spelling of that so that the letter name remains the same. In other words, it's still A at the top, but A is sharp. So by raising that top note a semitone, we've made the 2 notes a semitone further apart, and this has become an augmented sixth. Go back to the major sixth. Now let's lower the top note by a semitone and make it A flat. So this has now become a minor sixth. Let's raise the bottom note by a semitone. So we've now made the 2 notes again another semitone closer together, and this has become a diminished sixth. So a major interval if you make the two notes a semitone further apart but without changing the letter name, becomes augmented. If you make the two notes a semitone closer together without changing the letter name, it becomes minor. And if you make the two notes a further semitone closer together, but again without changing the letter name, becomes diminished. Now it can be confusing, I know this, because if you play C to A and then raise that top note by a semitone but spell it as B flat, then that is actually a minor seventh. But if you change the spelling to A sharp, then in theory we call it an augmented sixth. So they sound the same, but there is a theoretical difference. I hope you enjoyed this and found it useful. If you did, then please click like and subscribe. And if you're interested in online lessons at all, then please visit my website. There's a link in the description below, and my contact details are there, and I do offer a free trial one-to-one lesson with no obligation to continue. Thank you.